Bye-bye.
A Fox News alert on the Las Vegas concert massacre, the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history already, with the number of dead certain to rise. Moments ago, we just heard from President Trump. Hello, I'm John Scott.
And I'm Melissa Francis. President Trump just made his first on-camera comments on the deadly shooting in Las Vegas that left more than 50 people dead. The president calling the massacre an act of pure evil, saying Americans are united in sadness, shock, and grief after a country music concert became a killing field. Some witnesses say the automatic gunfire lasted 10 minutes. And while police don't yet know the motive, they do know the identity of the 64-year-old gunman.
We are looking in an excess of 50 individuals dead. The suspect, I am going to provide you his identity at this point. His name is Stephen Paddock. It's going to be a long and tedious investigation.
So here's what we know so far. A lot has come out. Police say they found the gunman dead inside his hotel room, where they also discovered as many as 10 weapons. The sheriff saying that at this point they believe this was a lone wolf attack. Adam Housley is following all of the breaking developments live from Las Vegas. Adam, what do you know?
Well, Sandra, I'll tell you what's going on now. As we were talking maybe 3 minutes ago about now we believe from talking to police officials from 2 separate holes that were blown through the windows by the shooter. Now, we had a chance to talk with a lot of people when we came here not long after the shooting. We were here all throughout the night meeting people that were heroes, some of them first responders by nature, some of them became first responders not by choice. And one of them was a younger guy who came over. I saw him walking out. He had blood all over his body. I asked him, are you okay? Were you injured? And he said, no, it's not me. This is somebody else. Take a listen.
I was here enjoying the concert just like every other fellow American here. And, you know, things happen, brother. You know, what goes on here isn't American. That's not what we're about, and this is not okay. Other people run, that's okay, that's on them. I'm here for everybody else.
How many people did you help? How many people
7.
did you see down?
How many people did I see down? Probably close to 20.
In various, obviously, conditions?
Look, man, I'm not wearing any clothes up here. Everyone who I thought, you know, has passed on, they have an article of my clothing covering their eyes, covering part of their body. Everyone who I saw breathing, I helped, man.
And where we're standing right now, I mean, this distance is a couple of blocks, well, maybe a block away, even though it's just across the parking lot. And we know that this area here was overrun. There's a cyclone fence 6 foot high with barbed wire on top, knocked down. There's blood on a shack that basically is outside a fuel facility that it came from a victim. There's a window busted in a building over here that someone tried to break the window to get inside, and there's blood all around it as well. Everybody trying to flee the shooting. I can show you from this angle, guys, where we are. The Mandalay Bay is right there. You can see the windows. We've been showing these all morning now that the sun's come up. You can see the curtains now flapping in the wind. Both of those windows from the angles that we've seen, which is the angles basically down towards where the concert was located, or is located, have completely unobstructed views. One, the furthest left, is partly blocked out by the actual stage, but for the most part, they can shoot down from both of those windows very clearly into what was once a crowd of 22,000 people. As we come down, we can show you that stage where Jason Aldean was performing the last concert of the 3-day series. You can see that there is just basically on top you have the actual light features and the ability to where they mount stuff. On the sides, it's just the cloth that would help encase and enclose the area in order to use the lighting for the actual people performing. That's all there was there, and they ran out the back. As another one of the tour buses continues to move and leave. We've seen them leave all morning long as people are being let out. Some of the cars, people are being allowed to come back in and get their cars and take them away. But you see cars that are here where no one have come and claimed, and you just hope that that's someone who didn't die or isn't seriously injured someplace in a hospital. So, there's a lot of recovery to go on here, Sandra. There's still a lot of information that needs to take place. And right now we know that federal authorities are inside there, as well as local police as well. You can see them going in and out. I have not yet seen the FBI forensic team come here. I know they're on their way, and they have the ability to do and help a lot with this ongoing investigation, because there is still so much to learn and so much to know. At the same time, we know the numbers are only going to continue to fluctuate. Right now, more than at least 50 dead and more than 400 injured. Back to you in New York.
So terrifying, so tragic. Adam, thank you for that.
We're getting word now that the Mandalay Bay Hotel has allowed guests to return, lifted access to those guests. The hotel has been in lockdown all night, obviously, as a result of what transpired on the 32nd floor when the SWAT team burst in and used an explosive charge in the room of the gunman. He apparently was already dead, having taken his own life. Those horrific moments when the gunfire rained down on the crowd at a packed Las Vegas concert. It took place shortly after 10 p.m. Las Vegas time last night, recorded by witnesses and still pouring in on social media.
We heard the shots, and I don't think anybody realized at first what was going on. Until we heard the second set of shots, and everybody started running.
Get down, get down.
One of the times we paused, our friend was like, the guy next to us got shot.
Russell Bleck was at the concert during the shooting. He joins us now on the phone. Russell, it is so difficult to process this kind of evil. Where were you, and when did you first become aware that shots were ringing out?
So I was located in the VIP tent to the right of the stage, which I don't know if you guys can see an aerial shot, but it's the tent that was closest towards where the shooter was at Mandalay. And everything seemed fine. Even after the first, I heard 2 short 3-round bursts. It was so far away, it wasn't like a gunshot close by, so no one panicked at first. And then all of a sudden, and then it started picking up and gaining ground. Kind of sounded like a helicopter, because we are by the airport. So a lot of us were like, okay, is the helicopter taking off or landing or something? And then all of a sudden you start hearing bullets just ricochet everywhere, and people taking cover and people getting hit, and it was just pure chaos and carnage.
So you became aware when you figured out it wasn't a helicopter, that obviously you've got a shooting going on. How did you react? Where did you go?
There's nowhere to go. I mean, that's the scariest part of this entire thing. You couldn't tell where the shooter was because the sound just kept echoing throughout the area. So you hear one shot. We thought there were 3 shooters at first. The majority of the people within there thought there was more than one. There's only really one way in and out, and that's towards where the shooter was firing from, where it bottlenecks. We somehow managed to escape under some bleachers and ran to the furthest side of the complex. But the scariest part, there are 10-foot walls surrounding everybody. Nobody could get out.
Obviously,
except for that one entrance toward the shooter.
Yeah, they wanted obviously to have a secure facility for those who bought tickets, and it turned into a death trap for so many.
Exactly.
In terms of, well, we know that a couple of those who were killed were off-duty police officers. I just wondered, did you get any sense that the shooter was targeting individuals, or was this just wild spray gunfire?
Wild spray gunfire. I mean, you can tell it was an automatic. I've been around guns my entire life, and I've never even heard a gun that can fire that fast legally. You can legally own. The thing it was just, he was spraying. I mean, he was 300 yards away. We're talking 2-3 football fields. And this guy was just, if you fire a round into that crowd, you're going to hit somebody. there was no escape. It was just like, oh my God, it was horrible. And then like, you see these police officers, everyone's crouched down, and these police officers just running towards the danger, you know, using their bodies and blocking people and protecting kids and families. And it's just, you can't, I don't know, you always hear people talk about, oh, you know, this is like a horrible tragedy and you don't know what it was like. And I remember watching these things, like, okay, what would I do in that situation? And then once you're thrust into that, and when you see people in wheelchairs getting knocked over, nobody can help them. Because the gunfire was so relentless, you couldn't stop. If you stopped, you were hit. We had to wait every about 10 seconds because you have about a 7 to 10 second gap between him reloading, and that's the opportunity that we used to move from cover to cover. I mean, thank God it was a country concert. There's so many ex-military that just kind of jumped in. I saw people with veteran hats and 60-year-old men just ducking down, telling them, stay low, and like just coaching people on what to do in the situation. I mean, I saw people plugging bullet holes with fingers. It's just,
yeah. Let's talk about the heroism and you know, try to forget about the tragedy, but let's talk about the heroes that you saw last night.
In a world where everyone's kneeling, I saw hundreds of people standing up and running towards the danger. You know, I mean, these first responders. The second you heard, I just can't believe how I didn't know what to do in this scenario. And then there are these, you know, individuals who are obviously trained really well, running towards automatic gunfire with nothing but a pistol on their sidearm. I mean, like, who does that? It's just. See, I mean, every distraction that those cops gave that guy saved countless lives. I mean, he was just spraying the crowd. Every single time that trigger was pulled, multiple people were hit.
And you said that you saw people plugging bullet wounds with their fingers. I mean, the battlefield
people were
medics.
knocking over barricades and using the barricades as like gurneys and stretchers, taking 2-3 bodies out at a time, just dragging them, just trying to get people under cover. I mean, there were 6 people in a porta potty at a time, and all the porta potties were locked. We were like mice in a cage, or mice in a maze. We just couldn't get out. I mean, you finally think you were out to an exit, and then it'd be a dead end with a 10-foot wall. So you'd have to double back through thousands of people and try to get out. And then poor fiance, her knees are all torn up, and I mean, she's finally asleep right now. I haven't had a chance to sleep yet. It's just it's images in your head, and I just had to wake her up from a nightmare and tell her, you know, we're home. It's okay. It's over. Actually, one of your producers called us. I had to wake her up and apologize.
Oh, well,
this is going to stick with you forever.
We do appreciate you sharing your story with us. I know these events were horrific. I'm at a loss for words trying to describe what has transpired there in Las Vegas. But I think it is interesting when you talk about people running toward the gunfire, people who, you know, trained officers and others who have military backgrounds. I mean, Americans really stepped up and tried to help their fellow Americans, it sounds like.
They truly did. And I mean, this is unlike anything I've seen on television or heard about or even in a movie or television. I mean, it was just relentless gunfire. I heard personally 200-300 rounds go off.
And how long were the shots continuing? Any way to know?
10, 15 minutes. I mean, it felt like forever, but realistically, I know it took about 10 minutes. I lost my fiance for 5, found her and my friends, and then darted away, and it took us another 12 minutes. I'd say total, about 15 minutes. And then we still heard gunfire, hopped in my car 2 blocks away. I mean, it just didn't stop.
Did you think, I mean, you must have thought about who would be doing this. What was going through your mind on that score?
I couldn't imagine. I thought the guy was in the ground. I didn't know where it was coming from. It sounded like with all. I mean, when you're crawling through the ground, you can feel the stand hitting your face of like the ricochets off of the ground. You can feel just the stand getting kicked up at you. And I mean, I wasn't even thinking that. Honestly, my first thought was I need to get to my firearm, which is 2 blocks away in my car. But I mean, that wouldn't even have done anything. I mean, there's nothing you could do in a scenario where that guy was positioned. there's nothing you can do. I cannot imagine that anybody could do something like this. I mean, this is just so beyond horrible. I mean, there were kids there. I mean, God, I can't even imagine what all these families are going through. I mean, jeez.
If you were close enough to some of the bullets to feel sand kicked up in your face from their impact, obviously you were lucky.
No, we truly were. I mean, not only that, when we finally made it to the bleachers, like a couple thousand people underneath them, you could just hear it plink consistently off the bleachers. And then you can see the gunshots move away a little bit, and then he'd come back. It looked like he was just spraying. And then finally we had a gap when he reloaded. It took him, I think, a lot longer this last time. We just did a full-on sprint and didn't stop until we reached 2 blocks away.
Was there any indication? I mean, you point out how difficult it would have been to take out the shooter. I mean, police with their sidearms, even if they had known where he was firing from, it would have been a 1 in a million shot to be able to take him out. Was there any indication that it was coming from the Mandalay Bay? I mean, did you see any muzzle flashes, anything like that?
No, I mean, he was that far away to where, I mean, actually, I now witnessed video, and you can see he has this muzzle. I mean, I guess they found him because of the smoke detector. He fired so many times, from what I'm hearing. But, no, we didn't know it was coming. I knew it was coming from that general direction, but to be honest, we thought he was on the ground and slowly moving through the event space. We didn't know he was across the street. But it makes sense if you broke another window, because the first angle that he had was right towards the stage, and that's where I was to the right. And then as all of a sudden it stopped, and I guess he went out of another hole and started, I'm guessing, shooting towards the entrance, because I saw everybody just turn around and run back towards us.
Mm. Russell Bleck, who was working at the concert, you and your fiancé survived, and for that we are grateful, but so many others didn't. Worth pointing out what you said about Americans helping other people out, and let's try to remember that out of this horrible thing. Absolutely. Russell, thank you for speaking with us this morning. Get some rest.
The Department of Homeland Security says there is no specific credible threat to any other public venues after last night's massacre in Las Vegas. Joining us now is Michael Balboni. He is former New York State Homeland Security Director. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Let me start with one of the things that really stuck out from the guest we just had who was at the scene and lived through the terror. You know, he talked about trying to escape and feeling like a caged mouse or rat, that they would run away and find that they'd gone down a dead end and they couldn't get out. As we see this scene unfolding more frequently, unfortunately, how do you protect against things like this? Can you? And what do you do about escape routes? I mean, how do you deal with this if you're trying to have a public event?
So first, I just have to say I've done a lot of interviews. I don't know who Russell Bleck is, who was your guest, but whoever is, what a sober, salient conversation about what happened in chaos. I've heard lots of witnesses at these types of events, and I've never heard anyone that profound in terms of his observations. And that's going to be crucial to understand this event, because what he said was really important. That, first of all, the distance from which this shooter was operating prevented any counter sniping by the police officers with their handguns. So the only way you could have stopped this in the middle of the engagement was to have what they call an overwatch, someone with a sniper weapon that the Secret Service uses to be able to pinpoint where it's coming and then be able to interdict. But what you point out in terms of what happens in a crowd like this, when you have this scenario where someone is randomly spraying a crowd from that kind of distance, he's right, you have no idea where it's coming from. It's dark, there's music, there's lights. You, first of all, can't identify the sounds, but once it's identified, it is sheer panic, because it's so impossible to have real-time directions as to go to this place, go to this exit. A lot of times the strategies that are used to protect venues is that they will use obfuscation. In other words, they'll put up large, even cloth-like fabrics to try to shield the crowd. But nobody thinks about that at these public venues and public events, which thousands of them happen across the country every summer, if not throughout the year. And so how do you now take almost a Secret Service protective 360-degree awareness and apply it to these types of events. It's nearly impossible.
No, I mean, it really sounds like you can't. You know, I think like so many Americans lately, you know, as we travel around, whether you're at a concert, you're on a train, you're waiting at a bus stop. I mean, there are so many different places where you find yourself surrounded by a large crowd, which seems to be one of the things driving the attraction to crazed, sadistic killers. There's no way to protect large crowds all over the place, is there?
No. I mean, you know, the question becomes, is this the threshold event, the largest massacre in the United States, certainly as it relates to Las Vegas, but, you know, in almost any place in the country? Is this the threshold event that now says we're going to change the way we live our lives? We're going to change the way we go to public events. And when we're going to do a hard check on everybody, we're going to do lines of sight analysis as to who could fire into a crowd. You know, these are the types of decisions that are made, again, from a Secret Service protective standpoint. The FBI has a tremendous capability to do this, but do you do this with every possible public event?
You couldn't, right? I mean, there isn't the manpower in the
Exactly
entire country
correct.
to do something like that.
You're absolutely right. You know, the resources that we would have to apply, which is, by the way, a part of the general thought process of our opponents, the guys who want to do damage to the United States. And we don't know what this individual's motivations are. There's reports that ISIS is claiming responsibility for this, but that's been unsubstantiated.
We have no idea, right? That's
we
not
have no
confirmed.
idea whether that's true. And so whatever his motivation was, the question is there a way to spot these individuals beforehand? Because it's about preventing, not responding so much. And that's really the challenge in any of these types of situations.
Yeah. When you talk about, is this the threshold event that changes the way that we do things, I know that we have thought about this in the context of all the way back to the marathon, Boston Marathon bomber. You know, you say the largest event. We said the same thing about the Pulse nightclub.
Right.
I mean, these events continue happening, and in the aftermath, you hear people say, we are Americans, we won't have our freedom taken away, we're going to continue to go places. But at some point, as an American, when so many have piled up, do you say, do we take a break from going to big crowds for a while? Do we not go to places like Times Square? I mean, what is the tipping point?
Yeah, well, the country was shocked way back when in 1966 when Charles Whitman climbed to the top of that tower building in the University of Austin and shot 15 and killed many others. You know, this is very similar from that perspective. That didn't change our behavior. And we have school shootings. That doesn't change behavior. But what is the right response?
Yeah.
How do we live in a free society and take the measures that we need to make ourselves safe and apply the necessary resources? Obviously, 9/11 was that threshold event that changed the way we thought about our safety from a societal perspective. But this now becomes very much a domestic, in-your-backyard type of scenario.
Yeah.
You know, and it raises all sorts of issues that obviously will be the subject of debate in Congress, whether it's mental health, whether it's gun control,
Michael,
all sorts of issues.
Let me ask you really quickly before we run out of time. I mean, you were the director of Homeland Security in New York. What are you telling your family right now?
Yeah.
I mean, are you telling your family to stay out of public places? And what would you tell people you care about?
So it's so random. What I tell people is you cannot live your life that way. That unfortunately life is full of risks, and the only ways that you can mitigate them is to be aware of where you are. So oftentimes, I've said this before, you know, this is a society we are always connected to that phone and to the stream of information and talking to friends, and that's wonderful. It's the way we live our lives. But it always matters to know where you are, who you're talking to, what events are going on around you. But even in that situation, even with that awareness, this type of situation that would not have necessarily helped you because it's impossible to spot where the threat was coming and how to get out of that scene immediately. But overall, you can't live your life fearful. You must live your life aware of what's going on in your surroundings.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like when you go to see a doctor and they give you that could be this, could be that. And I always say, what would you do if it was your kid? You really wouldn't tell people in your family to stay away from concerts for a little while?
No,
Nothing like that?
Unless there is threat reporting that says that, in fact, this was an organized event, that this is a part of a terror campaign. Who hold these events are going to have to take necessary steps, expend those resources to reassure people through deterrence that this won't happen there.
We got to go. Michael Balboni, thank you for your insight. We appreciate it on this sad day. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a terrible event that has touched the entire nation. The president ordered in that speech that you might have heard a short time ago that all flags be flown at half-staff on federal facilities, and the White House is no exception. The White House flag is already at half-staff within half an hour or so after the president made that announcement. There have been reports that ISIS is claiming responsibility for this attack. No confirmation of that we are aware of, but our Catherine Herridge has been checking her sources and might have a little bit more information about that. She joins us now. Catherine?
Well, thank you, John. The FBI this morning confirmed to Fox News that they are bringing their full investigative and forensic resources to bear on the Las Vegas shooting, with the opening of one of the 1-800-FBI lines where they collect tips, videos, and evidence that can piece together what happened to the individuals perhaps involved leading up to the shooting. The FBI has the ability to process massive amounts of data and to do so rapidly. Much of the work is done at the FBI labs here in Quantico, Virginia. The rapid forensic processing helps investigators recreate the scene as well as the direction of fire by the suspect, Stephen Paddock. The 1-800 line has been deployed before, most notably during the Boston Marathon bombing, where that security camera footage helped capture the suspects, leading to that successful manhunt. The FBI is asking for anyone with videos or photos, social media posts, any digital evidence concerning Las Vegas to call their 1-800-CALL-FBI or 800-225-5324. And a short time ago, the president describing the FBI's role supporting the Las Vegas Sheriff's Office, who has the lead in the case.
It was an act of pure evil. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are working closely with local authorities to assist with the investigation, and they will provide updates as to the investigation and how it develops.
At the hotel and the other at a residence in Mesquite, Nevada, they were moving very cautiously given the level, or what seems to be the level, of premeditation in the shooting, and they're not ruling out whether there may have been booby traps left at that home address, John.
I'm sure all of Washington is trying to get its arms around what has happened here. What are you hearing about, briefings of senior government officials and so forth?
Right. Well, from very early this morning, I can tell you, based on conversations we've had here at Fox News, everyone at the most senior levels of this administration has been engaged. The Attorney General had an in-person briefing from FBI Director Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray crossed the street here in Washington and did that briefing at the Justice Department headquarters, or what's known in law enforcement circles as Main Justice. Also, the Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Elaine Duke, has had a briefing, and what they've told reporters in a statement is that they're not aware of any credible threats to other venues, but people can expect to see some heightened security at different locations around the country. But those decisions, I want to emphasize, will be made by state and local officials, not at the federal level, John.
Wow. Catherine Herridge joining us from Washington. Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
A Fox News alert in Las Vegas: at least 50 people killed and more than 400 others injured after a 64-year-old Stephen Paddock opened fire on a crowded country music concert. Investigators are searching for the motive as they comb through Paddock's hotel room and his house near Las Vegas. Retired NYPD Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale joins us now. What jumps out at you at this point about the facts that you have heard so far? What is really significant?
Well, the fact that he had this many weapons up there, how did he get them up there, is naturally the question everybody's asking right now. But I think we have to just sit back and let law enforcement do their job right now. Everybody wants a rhyme or reason, but the only rhyme or reason that you have right now is that you had this individual who was hell-bent on committing this much carnage and chaos in this period of time, and he had the advantage. He was high up. He knew what he was doing. He was sweeping, as we can, hear in the audio, and you have all your witnesses that are saying that he went from one window to the other. So he knew, he pre-planned this, and there was really no way of addressing this beforehand. You couldn't be proactive to something like this. You can only be reactive to something like this. And, you know, like I said, committing this much carnage and the chaos, he knew exactly what he was doing. And for people to start claiming, you know, ICE is claiming it, I mean, let the law enforcement do their job. Let's see how he got it there.
We are steering clear of that for now because we have no idea if that's confirmed, so I don't even want to introduce that out there. But I do want to ask you, I know that you taught classes with the NYPD in terms of how to interview witnesses at scenes like this. And I would wonder, so with the gunman dead by his own hand, what is the significance of talking to the witnesses? I mean, why is that essential at this point if you have the shooter?
You know, it's so important to interview everybody that you can in an incident like this, because you don't know what led up to it before that. You don't know if he is the lone wolf at this time. You know, maybe he does have somebody help him get into the hotel with it. You don't know. But the more people you interview, the more you can piece the puzzle together, what led up to it. Not the aftermath, but what led up to it. You know, they're looking for cars. They're looking for stuff on the computers. They're looking for, you know, how he got the weapons. They're looking for fully automatic weapons that were, you know, illegal. You know, they're going to look at all these things and piece them together and put a rhyme or reason to it. You may not get the rhyme or reason you want, but you'll get the answers which in the future could help out in other incidents. And that's the sad part of this. We always have to learn from prior experiences to go forward in these things. You spoke about the venues, the open venues. You know, I'm sure that the fire department down there, you know, dictates what exits, how many exits there have to be. But let's look at what's happening here. You have a man shooting hundreds, if not thousands of rounds into a crowd. There is no protocol for that. There is nothing that you can do to get them back and forth, you know, in one area. Times Square, for when we did Y2K, they had designated, you know, entrance and egress. You know, you had all the designated areas, but God forbid anything jumped off. Do you actually think people are going to go to that one specific spot? It's not happening.
Or the problem that you run into is, so they're trying to close in the event, not only because they don't want people to come in who didn't pay, but also, you know, say you are trying to create a perimeter and you are trying to have some sort of security. That then limits if people are running and getting out. You heard witnesses say that they were running and getting around, and then all of a sudden they found that they were up against a wall that they couldn't scale. So when you keep people out, you also keep people in. You know, I mean, that's something without question to think about. You heard the witness earlier in the show say that with somebody up so high, you know, there was really nothing that they could do to stop him. It seems like that's where we are at this point.
Exactly. He knew it. The shooter knew it. He knew that this is his last cowardly act on this earth, and that this is the way he was going to go out in a blaze of glory. But, you know, he committed on himself. But the point is, he had the advantage. He knew what was going on. He knew he was going to switch from one window to the other, from what we see up, you know, up at the top of that building there. He knew the vantage point he had. So he knew the time frame that he had to, you know, create this carnage. And you want to know something? You can second guess anybody. Or, you know, you could be a Monday morning quarterback, but it's not going to do any good at this point, other than moving forward, saying, what do we do in the future? You know, it's like I said, it's a learning experience. It's a tough learning experience, but we piece all these things together. The intelligence agency for the NYPD, you know, they travel overseas. You know, they keep tabs on as much as they can, and they use this information. And this isn't one of those instances where they said, oh, we've been watching this guy. We don't know that yet. There's reports that there's police reports on him. It might be a domestic. It might be something that he had.
Or even less, we heard he had, you know, a violation of some sort. Also, the idea that he had 10 guns into that room. Did anyone notice it going in? If you've been to Las Vegas, you know people show up with huge suitcases. He could have brought many, many suitcases in over time, and people wouldn't notice. We've got to go now. Joe Cardinale, thank you for your insight.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Pretty much like a war scene inside. I've seen a lot of stuff in my day with the fire department. It was hard to see.
It sounded like machine guns, just didn't stop.
We all ran out down the street here towards the MGM.
So much of the chaos, the pandemonium, the abject fear caught on the cell phones of concert goers last night, because in this day and age, we are all photojournalists. Our chief correspondent, Jonathan Hunt, is in Las Vegas and joins us now live with more. Jonathan.
John, after all those sounds of terror last night, it is perhaps the sound of silence that is most striking here in Las Vegas, which is, under any normal circumstances, a party town 24/7. Not so right now. The tourists who are here now are coming to this scene, looking at it, absolutely staggered at what transpired here. And just take a look up behind me here. That is the Mandalay Bay Hotel you're looking at here. And our cameraman, Rob, now zooming into what are clearly the two windows on the 32nd floor from which Stephen Paddock opened fire. You can see the vantage point he had on that huge crowd immediately beneath him, a helpless crowd who simply had nowhere to go. It was obviously a scene of complete terror, and in front of us, just obscured by these vehicles right now, though, there are chairs and a wheelbarrow which were clearly used to bring down from that scene some of those who were wounded. Just a short time ago, in fact, there was a body still here behind us. It has now been moved, another body just a couple of hundred yards to my right. Now the focus, John, obviously very much, and the answers everybody wants, why did 64-year-old Stephen Paddock do this? Now, he resided in Mesquite, Nevada. That's about 80 miles northwest from Las Vegas. I spoke to the police up there this morning. They say they have absolutely no record of him whatsoever. They have never had a call to service to his house. He has no citations there, just the one traffic citation, we believe, here in Las Vegas. But up in Mesquite, the police officer I spoke to said, basically, we didn't know him. He was a mystery to us because we never had any cause to know him. Now, there obviously is out there, as you've reported, this ISIS claim that he had converted to Islam. No evidence whatsoever of that, according to law enforcement so far. I would also
Jonathan,
point out,
let's interrupt for just a moment. The Las Vegas authorities are about to hold a news conference to give us the latest information. Let's listen now to the local sheriff.
Kevin, can you come up? Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you that don't know, I am Sheriff Lombardo for Clark County. I don't have very much more to update you with from our previous briefings. One thing in particular that has changed in the negative is our body count. You know what, that's the wrong way to say it. The number of people that have died associated with this event has increased. Right now we're using the number of 58. I just was informed that it may be 59 of an individual that may have expired at Sunrise Hospital. So in normal fashion, I do not want to give you bad information, so please do not press me on that number until we get further into this investigation. The number of injured, we are using the number of 515. And as you can tell, as the hours go by, that number continues to increase. We have not received any additional intelligence associated with the suspect. We have completed the search warrant in Mesquite. I am not aware of any derogatory information that we can utilize to furtherance of this investigation at this point, but we have just recovered items, and it will take a little while to evaluate that information. We have learned information of additional property in northern Nevada, and the FBI has responded to the location and will be serving a search warrant here shortly. We have completed the investigation at the room. We have collected all the items associated with the suspect, and we are in the recovery phase of that. The Mandalay Bay itself has gone back to service minus the 32nd floor, and they would like everybody advised that if they are separated from their hotel room, they have the ability to return to the hotel. Now, the location in question, the concert hall, we will be in a long process of body recovery out there and evidence recovery and evidence documentation. So you're going to have to ask the public's patience, and as we bring information forward, it's a long, laborious process to identify the victims and reunite them with the family members to advise them of their situation. So we still have the families responding to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department headquarters in order to conduct a reunification of their family or friends. Eventually, in the next few hours, actually, I don't want to give you a skewed timeline, but approximately 1 p.m. we will request the family members to respond to the convention center area to utilize a larger space, and we could bring in the victim advocates to assist with the family members in the long term. Right now it's just a temporary phase associated with the reunification. Additionally, we're asking to solely utilize United Blood Service for blood donation and UMC as the only places to donate blood. We had some resource issues associated with the laborers medical clinic. I applaud their effort to help us in that effort, but we have some resource issues associated with that. So better utilize lvmpd.com to ensure that you know where those United Blood Service locations are so we can get the needed life-saving blood for the victims associated with this. At this point, as you can tell, I have several individuals to my rear that would like to make comment. Reference the ISIS statement. I want to bring that up now. So I give the opportunity to Special Agent Rouse to respond to that from the FBI, and he will explain what we know now reference ISIS claiming this individual. Thank you.
Good morning. As this event unfolds, we have determined to this point no connection with an international terrorist group. As this investigation continues, we will continue to work with our partners to ensure that this is factually, thoroughly, and absolutely investigated to be able to bring comfort and peace back to this community. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ruben Kiwen. I'm the congressman for the 4th Congressional District here in Nevada. I just want to say thank you to law enforcement and to all the first responders who are now fighting tirelessly to protect and save lives. I had the opportunity to stop by Sunrise Hospital earlier this morning. Saw firsthand a lot of the victims, a lot of the family members, but I also saw a lot of nurses and doctors that were working tirelessly to save lives. And today it's a very sad day for Nevada. It's a very sad day for Las Vegas. But if anything good came out of this is that I saw humanity. I saw our community come together. I saw strangers helping strangers and saving lives. And so I do want to say thank you to the sheriff and to Metro Police, to firefighters, the doctors, the nurses, and everybody who is working tirelessly to save lives at this precise moment. I know we're going to get through this, and our city will be stronger. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson, and on behalf of the Clark County DA's office, our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody associated with this event. Two of my prosecutors, two of my young female prosecutors were actually at this concert close to the stage. And I've spoken to both of them this morning, and they're pretty rattled. They're pretty shaken up. This was a horrific event, to say the least. This is a classic WMD. This is a weapon and a man of mass destruction. What I'm pleased so much about is how this doesn't involve politics in the sense of Republican or Democrat. We are here. All of us are Nevadans. And I'm very proud to be present with the other leaders here because we're working together to get through this. I want to thank Sheriff Lombardo for your leadership in leading us through this terrible, terrible day. Thank you.